Morning everyone. Thanks for your design drawings. I'm still working through marking them. I'll be finishing the rest in the next couple of hours to give you feedback, those of you that are bothered at least. Some really good ideas so far. Actually, everyone I've seen I think I'm happy with, and we're going to go for them. Haven't had any that I've looked at and thought, no, that's impossible, we can't do it, so that's good news. What we're going to start today is the next thing that we can kind of do remotely. We're going to write for this week something called the design brief, which is basically a statement putting into a paragraph, just clearly setting out what it is you want to build and do. And then we're going to start a document called the specification, and the specification is it's something that I'm expecting you to add to and update as we get back to school and start figuring this out in more anger and start doing more research and development. But I wanted you to have a kind of very crude specification today for what it is you want to make. So for those of you I've already given you feedback on, there's certain key features I've said that, yeah, it needs this, it needs that, it definitely needs to do that. And those key goals of your project, like for instance in Emily, she's making this fold out shelter for like an earthquake. And one of the key things is it might need to have lighting. It might need to have a speaker to attract people. If they're trying to find you in a rescue situation, it might need to fold flat. We're going to go through some key requirements today, and that's really what I want you to put into your spec, the things that you know are definitely going to have to happen in this project, and we'll commit to them now. I'm fully expecting though there'll be other things as you go through this that you'll think, my product needs to do that and it needs to achieve this, and you'll have to go back and update your specifications. So I really want to emphasize again, we're making a start on it today. We are not finalizing and finishing this. This is a working document and will be updated throughout. Okay, where you find all this advice for you to look at in slow time, I'll just show you on the screen. So go into the content library, NEA guidance, and it's section B. Now it's worth section B 10 marks on its own. So literally there's 10 marks out of the, I think there's 90. So I'll remind myself. So here we go. Here's the mark scheme. So 20, 40, it's 100 marks, I believe. Yep, sorry. So 10% of your marks are just for writing these two documents. Now the design brief is little more than a paragraph, and the specification usually is 1 page of A3, page and a half maybe, depending on how many points you need. But I should emphasize here while we're talking about marks, you don't just get 10 marks for writing it. In order for me to give you 10 marks, you have to have research and development in section A that backs up the things that you wrote for your specification. So at some point, we're going to have, I've mentioned this before, we'll have to go back and write this prehistory where everything you put in your specification today as bullet points, you're going to have some research or development task that you did earlier on that is a reason for why that specification went in there. It might be as simple as having spoken to your client and they've gone, this is a feature I'd really like to see in the product, or it might be that you did some tests and figured out that whatever is the best material or best electronic component for the job, and that's why it made it in, but there's got to be some reason. So what I'm saying is, just because you write an amazing, fantastic specification today, I cannot give you the 10 marks unless we can back it up with evidence. All right. Before I go into how to write it, the other reason the specification is important is we're actually going to need it again when we come back to the final stages of your project work, which is analyzing and evaluating. So at the end of the project, once you've built this thing, hopefully, you're going to have your specification document, which is basically a list of bullet points, and you're going to be expected to compare with photos and testing your finished design to the list of bullet points that you set out to achieve. And you're going to have to test your product against every specification point you wrote. So it's really important that you have a good specification in order that your testing section at the end of your coursework can be really good, because as you can see, that's worth 20 marks as well. For those of you that are aiming for the B and the A and the A star grades, it's not just enough to have your spec and use it again at the end. You need to be referring to it throughout section C and section D when you develop and build the thing as well. So every time you come up with a range of different drawings for how you could solve a particular problem, you should also be referring to your specification when you talk about those and going, well, design number 2 I've got here fits specification points 3, 4, 5, but design number 3 fits points 1, 2, 4. In conclusion, I think design 1 and 2, combining them together would be the best, right? You're going to have this kind of dialogue where if you want to get an A, B, or an A star grade, you go back to your spec every time you do a drawing or an idea and go, great, this one meets it, or no, this one doesn't, therefore I'm going to park it, or I'm going to improve it. I hope that makes sense. So really, although it's only worth 10 marks directly, it affects this thing, which is worth 20 marks, and I'd say it easily contributes to maybe 7 of those 20 marks in that section, and also it probably contributes to about 10 marks across the development and practical. So it might not look important on its own, but it's a mega important thing. And to be honest, as a teacher of this sort of stuff for like 13, 14 years now, and someone who's marked a lot of folders and knowing what the moderators mark as well, when they mark your folder work, the first thing they're going to do is breeze through the front section, and they will spend a long time looking at your specification document, because really that's like your instruction manual of what you plan to build and what features it's got to include. And they'll look at that, they'll look at the finished item, and they'll go, yeah, that kid's done a great job, they've stuck to their goals, they've followed them, they've developed it and achieved it. Or they're going to look at it and go, this kid just wrote a load of rubbish down and then built something random, and the two don't match up, so they haven't really followed the design process. All right. I know I'm rambling a lot, and there'll be a lot of me talking. Sorry, but I'm trying to instill all my knowledge to you. At least you can pause me and go and get a drink midway. But yeah, it really, really, really is important that you follow this design process. All right, for you to get maximum marks if you're aiming for a B, an A, or an A star grade. We've talked about it throughout. I've said when we were back at school, you should be talking to your client, your customer, throughout the whole project, from section A, B, C, D, all the way through, right through to the evaluation. Every opportunity you've got to talk to your client, you should be. Equally, every opportunity you've got to refer back to your specification after we've written it today, you should be. And if you forget to do that, it's really difficult to put that dialogue in afterwards. All right, it just never reads smoothly, and it never looks like you did it properly to start with. So please, I'll try and remind you as and when we cover new work, like make sure you refer back to your spec, make sure you get some client feedback. But I want you guys to remember to do that yourselves every time you contribute a new page to your folder. Right, that's enough of me explaining why it's so bloody important. Let's look at what you've got to do. So we'll start on the design brief first, and I'd like you to kind of write a paragraph. So if you go into NEA guidance, there's the mark scheme, but go down to section B, expand it, and you'll see we've got writing the design brief. Okay, right. Now that, let's just move my face out of the way. This is an example design brief the exam board gave. And you can get an idea for how long it is. It's sort of a long paragraph, a few sentences in it. Now, this one's okay. I think my one's all right, is better on the right, but I just want you to read, well, I'll read it out to you. But so I intend to design and make a dog exercise and relaxation station to be used by my client. The prototype I can instruct will be used for smaller sized dogs such as a terrier, but it could be scaled up for larger dogs. The product will continue to support the client's brand. Dogs will be the users. They'll find it energizing and relaxing. And there'll be different functions to make that possible. The dog will also find interest in the product without human interaction. So clearly, reading that, I understand these guys are making something to entertain and exercise a dog, some kind of contraption or station that the dog can kind of play with and act around. That's clear. I know who the users are. It's aimed at dogs. Just because they're not human, that's fine. I think they could have improved it by realizing that there are human users of this as well, as in the dog owner is going to need to transport it and set it up and understand how it works and maybe clean it and fix it. So the human user will have needs as well, and they could have identified that person in there. But if I had to mark that out of 10, I'd give that probably a 6 or a 7 in terms of covering everything. I think when you write yours, right, whether you're making an earthquake shelter or a device to lift a motorbike on the back of a truck, or a bollard, Kieran, whatever it is you're making, mate, you need to cover these 4 areas. So what are you making? that's clear. If your design brief doesn't clearly state what it is you intend to design, all right? And again, please don't tell me how, all right? So I'll put that in here. I don't want to know how you're going to build it or what from. I just want to know what you intend to design, okay? The whole how you're going to make it and what from is yet to be decided through your experiments. So just tell me what it is you're aiming for. Who's it aimed at? Very important. You identify all the users and their typical kind of expectations, right? Is it going to be young children between like 5 and 10? Is it going to be young adults or single mums or elderly people, all right? Who are the users? And remember, in some products, there are more than one user, all right? If I pick Matt's motorbike stand, just because it's in my memory, one of the users might be using it for transporting a motorbike to and from the event, but it might also be used by courier companies, I don't know, or maybe it could be used for people wanting to do maintenance on their bikes so they could get the bike up onto a work table or something. So there's not just the guy transporting it, there's potentially other users in there that you could think about. Where? Again, just point out now where this product will be used, in a predominantly outdoor environment, or in a school setting, or in an elderly people's home, or in and around the house, whatever it may be. But just so we've got an idea of the environments that we're designing this product to fit and why you're making it. This one's the bit that I think that guy in the dog thing above hasn't done a very good explanation of. They've not really told me why. Right, why are you making a dog entertainment device? All right, dogs entertain themselves, don't they? I mean, I'm not a dog owner, but I'm sure there's a reason and a need for it, but it's not really justified very well in this. So if if he was to say, I'm developing this to improve dogs' mental health when they're kept in dog homes, or when they're abandoned or left at home by their owner, to help them relax, all right, so if there's some justification behind why you're doing it, good. And that needs to be in your statement as well. So although it's just a paragraph, it's quite tricky, all right? So you don't have to do task 2 because we're not in school, but you do task 1 and 3. Write design brief, 10 minutes. I'm just going to show you my one because I'm bloody brilliant, so I wrote my own. So I've done this, and then I'm going to tell you why I would give this 9 or 10 out of 10. So based on my research into the design context of improving road safety, I intend to design and make a motorbike presence and warning beacon for cars, motorcycles, etc. to help reduce collisions between bikes and cars. It will be designed in 2 parts. One part will be mounted to the motorbike and act as a beacon, which will be detected by a car-mounted detector. The product is intended as a demonstrator for the concept of aiming to fit these detectors and beacons as standard equipment to cars and bikes in future models. The product will be used on bikes and cars in an outdoor environment in all weathers and conditions. The goal of this product is to warn drivers of the presence of motorcycles, particularly in their blind spot, and reduce road deaths and injury. Okay, now I'm actually reading this again, and I'm probably going to give it an 8, maybe out of 10 rather than a 9 or a 10. And I'll tell you why for. So, going through my list of what I want, what? Have I covered the what? Absolutely. I've said what it is I'm making. It's a beacon that will alert a driver if a motorcyclist is nearby so that they don't smack into them when pulling out of a junction. Who? That's the bit I don't think I've really covered very well. I've explained that there will be for car drivers and motorcyclists. Maybe I could have put a line in there saying this product will be developed with motorcyclists and car drivers in order that those users' opinions on the best way for this product to function can be included. And it will be intended as a device that sits there subtly without really being noticed until it is needed. So it's kind of, I wanted to design it with this, like I said, as something that would be installed in cars as standard going forward if it works. All right. So like a second pair of eyes in a car to detect motorcyclists. I've clearly said where it's going to be used: cars, motorbikes, and all the environments they're in, and it could be in an outdoor environment in all weathers and conditions. So I'm already setting up my stall there that I need to design a product that's waterproofed and rugged and all these things. And why? I think I've made that very clear. Is to reduce road deaths and injury, simply, and to fix the issue of blind spots on cars. So that was my design brief. That's what I'd say, maybe an 8 out of 10. That's the kind of thing I want. So on an A3 page, it's not going to be big, right? You know, if this is an A3 page, I'm imagining you're going to have your design brief sort of up there, filling in a paragraph, and then we'll have our specification, which I'm going to talk about in a second, okay? Right, I'm actually going to do a second video for the specification. So watch this one, perhaps spend, you know, well, probably longer watching the video than writing the statement, sorry, but spend at least 10-15 minutes writing it and stick it up there on a page called design brief and specification. Obviously write it correctly, all right? Then we will put our specification underneath this, which I'll explain on video 2, and that may run on to a second page depending on how many points you have, all right? So watch video 2 after you've done your design brief.